decided to come back from vacation, Mr. Rick Hale. How are you?
I did. Did your mic turn to you? Turn your mic just a. There you go.
What? You hear me?
You sounded a little low to me. That's all. Can you hear me?
All right, good. Well, I'm glad to know you're back. The market's changed a little bit since you went on vacation, but man, it's changing weekly right now, which is fun while we do this on a weekly basis. However, we actually got into a text conversation over the weekend that I would like to carry on to this call because it started with somebody had texted us this article.
It's like 18 billion and something ridiculous, or
19 billion in losses as JP Morgan Chase and Capital One take big hits from bad loans reports. And, it was just a reminder that the media is going to sensationalize what the media sensationalizes. But the question we were asking is, what's the opportunity? And if maybe we took 5 minutes at the start of this call before we jump into the numbers, why is that the question?
Well, in my mind, okay, so they took a loss. If they're assets, they're going somewhere. And where's the availability? Where's the pipeline? Where's the stream of potential? Back in 2009, 10, 11, 12, when I was doing a lot of REO, I can tell you where the opportunity was. It was Fannie and Freddie and some other banks, local banks that were carrying debt, and it created opportunity. And so I'm not seeing it yet. That's the part I was asking. The fellow that said it, is heavily vested in real estate, especially rental. And he also did a lot of foreclosure back in the day, and he said he's had 2 this year. So that's not exactly a windfall opportunity wise. So my question is, where's that debt? And the other thing, if you read into the article, as I recall, I glanced at it on the run when he sent the clip, and the percentages, although it sounds dramatic, I think they write off debt regularly. Like, it's a collective, massive bucket. And I don't know how accurate or precise it is.
Yeah. Well, I think that the thought that went through my head, and we haven't talked, so I'm glad we're having this real time, is no matter what market we're in, there's always an opportunity. And it's not always right in your face. And so then the challenge is, how do we discover the opportunity in every market? So what is the opportunity right now? I'm not sure we found it yet. It was easier to find in 2008, 9, and 10, because it was really the REOs and the short sales, and somebody was getting discounted property at somebody else's detriment. However, there's always opportunity. And I have one thought. I noticed over the weekend, there was an article about Berkshire Hathaway, the company, Warren Buffett basically had just invested $700 million into D.R. Horton stock, new construction stock. And I thought, man, if that guy's supposed to be one of the greatest investors of all time, maybe there's a lesson there I should be paying attention to. And I think we've been talking about it on this call for a while, is new construction is probably a little bit of the opportunity right now for inventory, a little bit of the opportunity for incentives. But I also think the development side is probably a good thing if you have cash to play with. What do you think?
That's the catch. You've got to have cash to play with, because banks are playing it ultra safe. Their loan to value numbers are way different now than 3 years ago or even a year ago. And so there could also be opportunity in the reset, where a lot of these syndicators who buy a lot of multifamily, build their model around bridge loans and short-term extensions on their loans, and they're multiples of millions. And, they're up for renewal, and banks aren't playing, man. They're going from 20% down to 40 and 50% in some cases, depending on your credit capacity and cash and your P&L and your flow, your cash flow. So there could be opportunities to pick up product like that, but it comes back to what you said. You've got to be financially secure and cash friendly.
Yeah. And, the world seems like it's in a little bit of a recession, but not everybody's feeling it the same way that the real estate community is feeling it. So there might be people in your database, in your world, that have cash that potentially could partner, potentially could, hard money lend, all kinds of things to help people do some unique things in real estate, right?
Yep. 100%.
All right, well, let's jump into the numbers. I just think I want to keep that conversation around what is opportunity out in front of us for a while. Right now, there's 752 actives in Fulton County, 121 active under contract, and 294 pending and 291 closed. It looks a lot of the same story we've been saying for a couple weeks. However, the anticipation is a seasonal drop, meaning we think it's going to start to slow down a little bit with seasonality soon as now that school's back. But I hadn't seen it yet. I can't show it to you on paper, but our expectation or our prediction is a seasonal drop. Let's run over here to DeKalb. Dun, dun, dun. Say something smart while I'm clicking all these buttons here.
Seasonality is also incredibly type of product dependent, whether it's townhome, condo, single family, is it a gated suburban versus exurb versus urban? So different markets, not only geographically, but the type of buyer that lives in those are less affected by school cycles, if you will. So that's a factor. I don't know if that was intelligent, but I was thinking about where is seasonality less impact rich or impactful?
100%. So DeKalb's got 392 active, 86 under contract, which is healthy, 167 pending, which we've had over 200 a couple times early May. But since May, it really hadn't been over 200 on the pending number. And then our closing number, we broke 200 a couple times in May and June, but we're sitting at 159. I'm thinking that's a 15% down from what we were midsummer. So maybe the seasonality has started, but we'll see, right? And if I just jump over to Cobb County real quick. I just one of the comments that came out of Mega Camp, Rick, was the welcomed return to seasonality. And I don't know if that's a welcome term when you've been riding high for so long, yet when you're in a real estate market, you can predict, you can navigate the best. So even we were living in a market of excess, we weren't able to predict the future, where now, even if we're in a slower market, the seasonality, the normalcy allows us to make predictions. So for instance, Rick, if you and I were to sit down and do a business plan in a month or two for next year, we probably would have a more accurate business plan than we would have 2 years ago. Because 2 years ago, it was just foot to the gas pedal and we just throw in numbers on a piece of paper and going. Now we can actually kind of predict and look at numbers and see where it's going. But Cobb County's got 411 active, 90 under contract, which they tend to hover right around 100, 169 pending, which has come down over the last 2 weeks, and closings at 199. It looks like we got in the 260 range a couple times this summer, but it's been under 200 a couple times as well on the weekly total. So 199 is kind of right there with par with what the market's doing. So we'll hang for now. I wouldn't say we're going gangbusters, but it's a pretty healthy market for the current climate. All right, so Gary Keller, Rick, jumps on stage at Mega Agent Camp and uses this term rolling recession. And he talks about how the U.S. housing market will have a rolling recession going into 2024, which it did come with a little controversy. Like some people don't necessarily 100% agree. I tend to agree with them, but what is a rolling recession? A rolling recession is really just defined as not all segments of the economy are equal, meaning real estate might be experiencing a recession, but cell phone sales are not, is what the article talks about. And what it really boils down to, Rick, is if the industry is tied to the cost of money, it's experiencing recessionary times. If the industry is not directly tied to the cost of money, it's not as affected by the recession. So, for instance, if you need a new iPhone tomorrow, you're going to go down and spend your $1,000 or sign your life away on some contract to get that iPhone. And whether the interest rate's 7% or 6%, it's not affecting that decision very much. But if you go buy a car tomorrow, that decision is affected by the interest rate. If you buy a house tomorrow, that decision is affected by the interest rate. But 9 times out of 10, you're not making your decision in a retail environment, in a food service environment. I would argue most people don't even make their decisions on travel and entertainment based on interest rates, although maybe they should, because most people are slapping it on credit cards, right? So the rolling recession just means some people they don't even know what we're talking about. And then all of us in real estate absolutely know what we're talking about. And I think it's going to look that way probably for a period of time. What would you say?
100% agree with that. I mean, it's the cost of living is just, inflation, and the cost of living is affecting certain pockets and segments of society more than others. The middle and lower middle class, I think, is less cash friendly and more credit, if you will, burdened. And so that's who's affected by purchase decisions where, all of a sudden, I don't know about you, but I keep getting notices on my line of credit that, it went from 3.5 to 4 to 4.5. Now I saw 7.5 this week. So I'm having to rethink whether I carry debt. And when you rethink carrying debt, you have to reallocate your active assets and your active cash. So that's one of the sideline stories is cash and credit and capacity. And then, Gary, by the way, is he usually takes the side of more doom or gloom or less optimistic. And I think it's brilliant, because if you win in a down market, you win in any market. If you, adjust your sights and you start to double down on lead generation, and you're more cautious with your spending and how your budget, constrained, you're going to win either if you play that game, no matter what the market does. And I think that's kind of the point he always takes is it's better to be, precautionary. And a reduction in GDP and consumer confidence is obvious. It's been that way for quite a few months now. So I can see where he would suggest that it's rolling into next year, and it is hyper circumstantial. And it's, I'll say this one last thing. You said cars and boats, all they do now is just amend the structure of the deal, or it's potentially incentives from the manufacturer. I mean, they're going to find ways to make it affordable, which comes down to payment and not price.
So can I make a out of left field prediction?
I'd love to hear it. Let's go.
I think first-time home buyers have been priced out of our industry for quite a long time. And the prices of homes aren't going to go backwards to make it affordable for a first-time home buyer. But I bet you a 40-year mortgage shows up sooner than later, just for affordability, for a first-time home buyer to be able to afford the payment to spend the same amount of money on those houses. That's my prediction. I think I'm out of left field, but I may not be that crazy.
It's the same theory with the car story I just shared, where
that's why
all of a sudden now it's got to be the manufacturers who are getting creative with the narrative about, quality of life experience and then the monthly cost. So I agree. And there's also going to be buy downs that are probably a product in interest rate. And also going back to adjustable rate mortgages is going to be because everyone probably assumes at some point it's going to settle left to right. What does it look like? How long do you plan to stay in your house? If it's 5 to 7 years, why lock a 40-year mortgage if the 5-year adjustable or 7 is attractive?
Yeah.
And lenders don't make money unless they're lending. So they got to come up with a story that meets the market demand.
I mean, my wife is Swedish, and in the country of Sweden, they lend you money based on your life expectancy. So if you're buying a house at like 30, you might get a 50-year mortgage. You're buying a house at 60, they may give you a 20-year mortgage, based on, you got to pay the thing off before you die. Anyway, Gary said we all feel
that's like an age bias.
Huh?
That's a version of profiling. What the heck?
Hey,
what are you saying? This gray hair just denied me a 50-year mortgage.
I'd shave. All
Thank you for smiling, Joel. I see you.
He said, but we all feel it. We know what's going on. One thing that I love about this call, Rick, is we're not hiding or trying to fluff. Like, we're talking the real stuff on this call. But the real statement is this one right here. Do you fear it, or are you plowing through this thing? I think it's going to look different. I was thinking about the business planning season, and in previous years, Rick, we might have done business plans based on how much money we want to make, how many houses we want to sell, what's our ego number, right? And I'm not saying that's wrong, but I'm thinking this year it might be business plans around what activities are we going to agree to do? Am I going to grow my database from 250 to 500 next year? Am I going to make sure everybody in my database talks to me at least 4 times? I'm going to make sure everybody in my database has a kick butt 36 touch. And I'm going to double down and make my plan around my activities and trust that the results will show up on the back end. Because I'm not sure we focused our businesses that way in the years past. We'd always start with what we wanted out of it and try to work backwards. Now let's build a perfect plan and make the results happen as a result of the perfect plan. Because I heard Tony DeCello say at Mega Camp, he said, listen, most people do 20% of their lead generation. And guess what? They get 20% of their goal. And they're upset about it. He said, but let me ask you a question. If you did absolutely all your lead generation like you were supposed to, 100%, do you believe you would hit your goal? And the entire room said, yes, 100%. But why don't we do it, right? Well, it's maybe fear is a factor. Maybe we just need to get our heads right. I think this is a little bit about that conversation because it is what it is right now around the economy. The question is, are we seeking opportunity? Are we afraid of what's before us? Or are we focused in on the activities it takes to go be successful?
Yeah, well, at the top, our top producer mastermind we had about a month ago, I was asked to speak, and I spoke to the idea that we stress about things often that we can't control, and that's an emotional waste. I mean, you've just tied up energy in your body that doesn't pay dividends. And so you can't control the economy. You can't control inflation. You can't, we're kind of along for the ride in that regard. But where you do win is when you focus on leading versus lagging indicators. And what you're alluding to, and what I heard you say, is that if it's all about lagging indicators, which is the net number, the net financial or number of homes, man, that's a lot of energy on something you can't control. If you get really serious about leading indicators and you lean into the flare gun that Gary Keller shot off saying, hey, we're headed into another rocky turbulent season, then focus on leading indicators, the things you can control, and double down knowing that regardless of the outcome, you win.
Boom. Here's the comment. He said, so right now, real estate's the sector that's having a recession. In any industry right now that's driven by the cost of money is having a recession, but cell phones are not having a recession right now. Are you with me? He added, yeah, there's a lot of products or services that are not in recession right now, but banking could be the next one that experiences a recession. I agree with that. Banking's going to be interesting. So then this other person writes this article. Well, how to counteract his latest recession prediction, which, I got to laugh because some people just like press release. They restate the whole article is restating what Gary stated in his article. However, there's a couple links down here that I think were worthy of talking about. So one of the links was 5 ways to encourage buyers in the current market, which is this. So how do you get buyers to move now? 1, understand what your buyers are looking for and deliver, meaning get really focused on what they're looking for and make sure you make them say no, meaning find them the perfect house. And then they got to say no to it. And to be a great home matchmaker, you have to be a good listener, minimize any hesitation or doubt, show them the homes that check all or most of their boxes. Seeing strong properties that meet their needs will incentivize them to make a move. Take advantage of off-market opportunities. I know we could do a better job of this, but I feel like we make good effort to share amongst our peers of what's coming and opportunities around real estate before it hits the market. So we can have those pocket listings, those insider knowledge of what might come in the next month or two as people are getting their houses ready, things like that. Negotiation. Listen, if I'm worried about interest rates or I'm worried about prices, you might win me over by telling me you're a fierce negotiator and can help me get a good deal. That 1 or 2% you might get in negotiation might be the difference of me making a decision or not. So that's a skill set, right? Obviously, investment potential. We're talking about price appreciation. We're talking about all the long-term benefits of real estate. We talk about this in our state of the industry, how you use the data to tell these stories, right? And then the 4th one is practice patience. What's that?
Something few realtors have.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, here's the thing. Everyone wants to buy. No one wants to be sold. And the way to compel someone to buy is to be patient and work off their timeline, present the evidence, and then consistently show them the value of making a decision sooner than later. Honestly, the simplest script I've always had is, when's the best time to buy real estate? And it's either now or any time in the past. And the only people to lose money in real estate in my 25-year history are the ones that sold at the wrong time due to personal duress and circumstances. So that comes down to budgeting and making sure the affordability piece lines up with, so that they're not stressed by a few percentage point or an economic downturn left or right, that they can hold it. Because if you can hold it, you'll show up on the other side and do well. And so I've never regretted buying real estate. I've often regretted selling it. And so it also depends on whether it's a first-time home buyer or are they buying it for investment purposes or is it a vacation rental, or, those change the dynamic of making an intelligent decision, which goes back to you having not only negotiation expertise, but ability to analyze deals. You've got to be able to do it with confidence.
I mean, I'm just sitting there thinking as you're talking, like, regretting selling real estate. I owned a house one time that backed up to like a highway. So I always thought it was a bad investment and I wanted to get rid of it as soon as possible. And I found out like the other day that it sold for double what I sold it for last year. And I was like, God, even that one, you know what I mean? Like it really isn't a bad piece of real estate, asterisk, as long as you hold it long-term.
Well, that's it. It kind of goes back to the question, how long do you plan to live in this property? If it's owner occupied, there's so many advantages between, writing off your mortgage interest and, you can house hack and rent a room or two. My youngest is now looking to buy his first house 6 months removed from college, actually a year now. And I'm excited for him. I'm like, let's create a spreadsheet of what it would look like, cost and income potential, and net the difference in mortgage interest deducted, as well as the likelihood it appreciates over time, and then overlay paying down the mortgage. And it's a fun conversation with a young person. And
Sure.
these days there are parents running around like me who have the ability to co-sign or, short-term loan or some down payment assistance. And those are the conversations you should be having. Are you helping your kids, especially the affluent? Are you helping them, develop real wealth building habits? And are you, what conversations you're having, and how can I support you with your grown kids in their 20s?
Yeah. And I mean, roommates, there's so many creative ways to get people into real estate to be able to afford it. Right.
Yeah.
And I always told somebody, you just got to get in the game. And until you own real estate, you're not in the game.
Yep.
And the game's called wealth. The game's called building wealth for long-term wealth for life. Right. All right. Last article we got is, home builders have reason for optimism, even in wake of higher mortgage rates. So I've been saying this, we've been talking about it, right? Like new construction now makes up about a third of the inventory. 1/3. Has that ever been that?
Seems high.
That's high.
Yeah, really high.
You know
Goes
why?
to show how
Because that,
people are locked into their houses. It's people, they have great interest rates. They probably don't want to move. Just if you've got a 3% mortgage, I mean, it's, unless you're moving and you're planning to rent it, which is not a bad idea at all. I mean, that's a
yeah,
beautiful plan. And if you live in it 2 or 5 years, the gain, sell it in 3 years from now, you're going to accrue even more appreciation and also pay down on the mortgage.
yeah. And every one of these houses didn't have to deal with that conversation. They're brand new construction. There
That's
wasn't a
it.
seller deciding if they could, it was a good idea to let go of that 3% interest, right?
Yeah.
To be precise, new builds make up 31.4% of the homes on the market in the second quarter in the US, I believe. I don't think it's Atlanta. I bet you it might even be a little higher in Atlanta. But nonetheless, the rate reached over 7. Did anybody panic? I mean, the news media panicked, but I'm not sure our industry panicked that much. We're kind of getting used to that level of an interest rate. But just for perspective, new construction was 19% of the market before the pandemic. So give or take, it shows Atlanta at 24.3% in Q3 2023. We're in Q2 2023. It was 20% in second quarter 2022. So we went from 20% to 24%. So that's a significant hike, 4%. You can see some of these other markets where new construction really happens. But at the end of the day, I want to end with what we started with, Rick. Like, where's the opportunity?
I think patience pays dividends, and that there are going to be opportunities, but I think they're going to be selective and isolated, and it could be off market. It could be local bank driven. I don't think we're in for a rampant opportunity rich experience real estate wise, because there's so much equity tied up right now, and people, they're not giving up their homes because of personal financial circumstances yet. And so until supply and demand twist, it's a supply and demand question, and there's still even poor, not positioned well homes are selling pretty quick. Not like they were, but there's no, the distress level is not at the point where I'd say it's just every corner has an opportunity. So that means digging a little and working a little harder to find it if that's your goal.
There you go. If home prices tend to go backwards, there could be a rush of cashing out your equity to get into the next place. But I don't think that's going to happen right now. I think people are sitting on their houses, and prices are sitting pretty flat right now. I think US, they're down 1% right now. I think certain pockets are still up. Certain pockets may be down a little more, but on average, it's down 1%. I'll live with flat prices for a minute. We just came through an appreciation period where people were up 45%, right?
Yeah. Well, there's something to be said for stability and predictability. And that's what I see in the data month after month, for the last 12 months is there's a slight decrease in pockets, but for the most part, there's a predictable, the numbers are predictable enough that I don't think there's a massive risk in jumping today versus waiting. And that was the real conversation when the market shifted last in 09 to 12 is, oh my gosh, what are they going to do tomorrow? And that extreme up and down fear of really locked people up, and it created a freeze. And I think we're in a good steady state.
There you go.
And you should take advantage of that and get your unfair share by doubling down on leading indicators like lead generation, conversations about your kids, and are they going to move out of your basement one day? And how do you facilitate wealth building conversations? A couple extra houses a month and your entire database changes everything.
Yeah. Any questions about anything we covered today? All right, Rick, we did a good job. Happy Monday. Industry update.
Take care, friends. We'll see you soon.